Welcome to The Lost Signals Discusses Film and TV. Using the revolutionary Manzur-Mossi Thurlow scale,
or MOTS,
we scrupulously review these art forms with an emphasis on narrative structure. Join us for another entertaining episode. Hello, and welcome to The Lost Signals, a very special interview we have with Michelle, I think I'm getting this right, Iannantuono.
Iannantuono, is that close enough?
You just told me.
The more you say it, the easier to remember.
I know, exactly. And you have made a movie that we both saw and really liked. I want to kind of let you intro the movie, talk about what it's about. It's called Livescream, and we'll start talking about that, and we'll talk about a lot of other things throughout the interview as well. So why don't you tell us about Livescream?
Cool. Yeah, so I'm the director, writer, and basically everyone except the actor and makeup artist and musician for Livescream, which is my first feature film. It's a horror film that's currently on the festival circuits. I think it's been on the circuit for about 3 months now, so we're still pretty early, and I don't know, maybe 1,000 people in the world have seen it at this point, so a small pool, but we're getting out there. Basically, it's a found footage movie about a guy who plays a haunted game on a Twitch stream. So it's all in real time. And it's starring the lovely Gunnar Willis, who basically carries the entire movie by himself. He's in a webcam.
It's kind of a one-man show in a sense.
Yeah, he's the only person who has speaking lines in the movie. So it was a challenging film to make, but it's a film that I'm really happy with how it came out. I'm really happy with how it's been doing, and I'm excited to share it with everybody. And as for other things I do, Octopunk Live is or Octopunk Media is my film company that Livescream is released under, but I also got some other projects coming up through there, including Octopunk Live, which is my monthly live show on Facebook. So we can get into that later.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to want to ask you about a lot of that other stuff as well later on. But why don't we start with talking about kind of how you got into filmmaking, how you got into, I guess, being creative, things like that, you know, where the Octopunk Media company came from.
A lot of people, I've been on panels and stuff with filmmakers, and we always get this question. Everybody always has a better answer than I do. My answer is so boring. It's literally just, I've always wanted to do it. I've been writing since I was 3, awesome. Basically. I mean, I've been making up stories since I was 3. I couldn't write, I didn't know language when I was 3, but when I could write, I started writing them down when I was 6, and then about the age of 8, I think I decided I wanted to start making films. And it took a while for that to sort of shape, because when you're 8 and you want to make films, you want to star in them, you want to direct, you want to just do everything. So my parents put me in acting classes and stuff, and then by the time I was 12, I was like, actually, I don't want to act. Like, that's not really what I want. I really just want to do behind the scenes stuff. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, I literally just want to direct and write. I don't want to DP, I don't want to edit, I don't want to do any of the technical stuff anymore. So basically, like all through adolescence, I was like the producer of the school news show. I was making short films. I made a web series in college when I was 17. So even up through my freshman year of college, I was making stuff. But I majored in chemistry. And that was a really grueling major. I didn't have a lot of time to be creative during that time. And then I graduated, got a chemistry job. And I was in that for 4 years, and it wasn't really fulfilling. I don't want to say I hated that job, but it wasn't great. And I found myself really wanting to climb out of it. So I ended up starting a videography company in order to, work for corporate clients and that sort of thing, in order to be self-employed and not have to work for the man anymore. So that kind of led me to, hey, I have a DSLR now, and there's some film contests, and I don't know any actors or anything, but maybe I can get back into making films. And that was 2 years ago, and 3 short films and a feature later, I'm just like on this train and haven't gotten off since. So, I guess it was just kind of like, without the chemistry job, I don't know if I would have ever been triggered to get back into film. I think I was really stuck in writing like novels for about 3 years. And that was kind of my sole goal, was to publish a novel. But I found that I really missed film, and now I'm kind of like, God, how did I ever not be like this for 7 years?
yeah,
that's awesome.
That's a great. Well, I mean, that's a great. I'm glad that you decided to go and do what you wanted to do. Having a job that you weren't super thrilled with.
I think we are a bit envious of that.
I know how that feels.
You did it. Yeah.
But yeah, that's great. Like, and I don't think that's a boring answer if you think it is. I guess it's not like some great director came and like taught me the art or something like that. But
yeah, it's not I saw a Martin Scorsese film and was so inspired. Honestly, if I had to say anything inspired me, it was Star Wars. Like, I mean, if you look at my early stuff from like when I was 6 or 7 years old, and this was right around the time the prequels were coming out, and also the fact that my mother, she's a Star Wars room in her house. It's like she's been collecting since she was 13. So Star Wars has always been a huge part of my life. If you look at my early stuff, it's pretty similar to Star Wars in like more than a few ways. So, I mean, that's kind of a cheesy answer, I guess, but that I always loved watching the special features, because like even for the prequels, the special features, they would do like this 2-hour like featurette on every single department that brought a minute of Star Wars to life. And I was just like, oh, I love the costumes. I love the rotoscoping guys. I just like every little bit of the filmmaking process. I wanted to build that empire myself. I think I've always had an entrepreneurial streak when it comes to art and filmmaking and stuff. Not just, I want to make stuff creative, but I've always wanted to be like, I've always like wanted to have like a Lucasfilm. I've always wanted to have like an ILM. I've wanted to have like this empire of creativity under me that I could kind of build, in addition to just being able to tell stories.
And that's Octopunk, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's Octopunk. Hopefully that's what Octopunk will one day be.
That'd be really cool. Yeah, you'll be the next, LucasArts or the next.
So actually, it sort of segues because you have it here. So can you give us a couple other influences like Star Wars and what else, like in that sort of same vein, like really like got to you, influenced you, spoke to you, like, yeah, I want to do that, or like it's so awesome that they're doing it, I want to be in the same vein of that?
So obviously I do have influences from games in addition to
That's sort of what I was going to get at. Like,
I would I would say that one that really comes to mind is Heavy Rain. I'm not the biggest fan of David Cage as a person, and honestly, he's not even really that great a storyteller. But I do really like his games, and when I played Heavy Rain, which was one of the first games that I really, really got into and was like, oh my god, this is what video games can be. I didn't know that motion capture could be used in that way, because it'd be like $150 million Steven Spielberg movies that basically still fall into the uncanny valley, and then you have Heavy Rain, which costs $30 million to make, has 5 times as much content plus game design, and look what they did with it. And they told like a David Finchery sort of like drama with it. And so I got really into motion capture for a couple years. I even had like a motion capture fan site thing of like resources.
Did you do any of that?
Yeah, okay. I never was able to kind of get it going because I just had so many other things. But I would love to like have a motion capture room or studio or do stuff with mocap at some point, because that's been a really big influence, and it's told me that like video games can tell like compelling stories too. So I'd say that was
for sure. Like, of course, like we're interested in the story, more the narrative aspect of games, and I do agree Heavy Rain was one that told a really cool tale in the medium that you didn't quite see before. So good pick.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I wanted to go off of that and ask if what is most of your stuff horror influenced as well, or was Livescream kind of a departure from that?
It's funny how it's kind of turned out, because most of my stuff has been horror so far. Out of my 4 films, 3 of them have been horror, and one of them was a thriller. So, I mean, yeah, it's really all over the board as far as, like, or really not all over the board as far as, like, I've kind of gotten this fixation on horror, which is really recent to me. I was never into horror movies as a kid. Like I didn't grow up with. I saw Friday the 13th for the first time last year. Like I saw Nightmare on Elm Street for the first time last year. It's really only been since I graduated from college and moved out on my own and made kind of this Halloween tradition of like, I'm going to watch a bunch of horror movies at Halloween. And then I watched Scream for the first time, and I watched Cabin in the Woods for the first time. I was like, oh my God, these movies are great. I love these. And now Halloween's my favorite time of year because I can sit and watch all these horror movies. And then it occurred to me, you can watch horror movies in months other than October.
Which I do a lot.
But yeah, so with horror, it really, the first film that I made for a contest, and I basically found out about the end of the contest like 3 weeks before the contest was over. So it was really rushed. It was really like, oh, let's throw something together. And I saw that the least competitive category for the films was horror. And I was like, okay, well, I'll make a horror film then because I'll have the best chance of winning. But what ended up happening was I made that film, and then I got involved in the film scene here in Charleston, which is hugely horror influenced because we have the Crimson Screen Film Festival, which is a huge horror festival. And now I've gotten involved with like those guys, and now I'm just kind of like, I'm in the mix. Like this is every year I go and I'm like, okay, well now I'm going to make horror movies. But I would say that I've always leaned towards genre stuff. I mean, I've always leaned towards like sci-fi and fantasy and stuff that's not just like dramas and rom-coms and biopics and like not that kind of movie. I have a really commercial sensibility. I'm not like art house. It's just not like my style. So in that case, I don't think it's that odd, I guess like if you had asked me like 6 or 7 years ago if I ever thought I would make a movie that was horror or a movie about games, I would think you were nuts. And then I ended up doing both. But it's just kind of happened, I guess. And I think indie horror games have had a big influence on that too. I think having watched so many horror games has kind of gotten me more into horror than I would have been before.
I kind of wanted to touch on that too, if you don't mind, for a bit. So I know I don't want to like really say a lot about Livescream because it's coming out. We got a screener, and thanks for
no spoilers here
for sure. But like, for example, I guess a general thing: do you watch a lot of live streams yourself? Like, were you happen to be watching them as part of your influence there? Like, I personally don't. Like, I'm nothing against them. It's just like I'd rather play games than watch people play them. But I understand the appeal, and it's sort of like I'm a little older, I guess, in a sense, but it's a newer phenomenon to me. So, like, I get it, but, like, I'm assuming that you have watched at least a couple of them because it's very accurately, at least I think, portrayed from what I have watched. So, like, are you, like, a regular streamer? Do you have, like, streams you like? And you're right, like, secondary tie-in is that a lot of them, many of them, it can be at least, they'll show indie horror games, like you said, a lot more of them are being produced. And so I think those are, like, ones that people often stream because they're at least entertaining, at least more so than like other kind of genres can be for a live stream. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I've watched more than a couple. I would say I don't really watch streaming officially. Like I don't really get on Twitch, but I've watched YouTube for 5 years now. One of my other Halloween traditions is I watch Markiplier's playthrough of Alien Isolation. From
that game is awesome, by the way.
And it's like a 15-hour Let's Play, but it's just like I'll get my bag of candy and it'll be like 7 o'clock at night, and like for a straight week of evenings, I'll sit with my candy and watch Alien Isolation for like 3 or 4 hours at a time. It's just like it's cozy, it's fun, and it's pretty hilarious. And that was like golden age of Markiplier too. I don't watch him as much anymore. I think he's kind of lost something. I like Jacksepticeye. I think Jack is kind of like what Mark used to be, and Jack has kind of stayed consistent between his the types of games that he plays and kind of how he acts. I really like the Achievement Hunters. I would say the Achievement Hunters who did like Rage Quit and Red vs. Blue and a lot of other stuff like under the BCP label. But so they've probably influenced me the most because I've kind of been with them the longest. I think that I've been watching Rage Quit since like 2011, 2012. And then from Rage Quit, I got into their GTA heists. And then I just sort of watched everything they do. But the big one that kind of influenced Livescream was their Uno the movie. which is on IMDb, and it's like 10-star rated.
It's impressive.
It's a 2.5 hour long Let's Play of Uno on Xbox One. It's being shot on election night 2016. They started at 4 p.m. thinking, all right, this is going to be the last one of the day. We're going to knock this out in 30 minutes and go home and whatever. Well, the way they set up the score system, the game wouldn't be over until one of them scored 400 points. And it becomes increasingly like obvious after about the 40-minute mark that they're going to be here for hours trying to finish this game. And it's so narratively satisfying because even though it's totally unscripted, it's just like an Uno game. They start off so hopeful and so chill and happy, and then by the end, they're just like in desperation trying to win the game so that they can go home and eat something and go home to their wives and like find out what happens to the country. So it's like that. I watched that. I've watched it like 4 times at this point, but last July I watched it and I was like, these guys can make a feature-length video of a Uno game. I wonder if I could make a feature about a game like a Let's Play. And that was kind of the idea for Livescream. So it's definitely come from watching a lot of it. And then I know that you mentioned, the indie horror aspect of it. I agree that they do stream a lot of indie horror, partially because a lot of it's free. A lot of it they can get on Game Jam and not have to pay for. It's fast, you can do a couple levels and get something out in 20 minutes instead of having to go into like a deep dive like an Alien Isolation where you're stuck with it for like 20 hours. And also I think that it does react better with the audience instead of like Minecraft where you're just sort of like watching somebody build. I've never really been into that. I've never been into like the open world explorations, like watching other people do that. I definitely find more satisfaction. Like, I love Fallout 4. It's my favorite game. The other corner of this room is my Fallout 4 corner with all my Fallout 4 art. But I would never watch anybody play that because I just wouldn't get the satisfaction. But, with something like jump scares, and I think I tried to tap into this with Livescream where, you're sort of yelling at the screen, telling them not to go left or whatever, because that's what we do with horror movies. And I think that's what people do.
So it translates pretty well because of that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's sort of a similar experience because you know that the gamer should be better at it, but you're not sure that you would do any better because, like, I got 40 minutes into Amnesia, and then it was, like, just randomly telling me, like, hold R1 if you want to sprint. And I was like, nope. I turned off the game. I just turned off the game and never turned it back on because I was like, I don't want to know why you're telling me how to sprint 45 minutes.
Yeah.
I like Amnesia. We might need to come back to you later on. I will give you some suggestions of like smaller, they're basically walking sims, but horror genres that I enjoyed at least in the past like 2 or 3 years. So I'm going to give you a list of them, but you made me think of that like if you like that, you might like other ones as well. But I'll let Sivo go.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to touch on the like the frustration that you have watching people do Let's Plays, and like you definitely kind of achieved it in the movie where it's like oh, why isn't this guy checking his corners right now? Like
he did say that like, while you're watching.
Why isn't he looking left? Come on, there's something over there for sure. And
in the puzzle level especially. That was based on all the frustration I've had watching Markiplier play puzzles because he's horrible at them. Particularly, there was one in a game called Blue Oni where I remember just being like, oh my god, Mark. And it's so funny because during that level, people are like shouting out,
of course,
what he should be doing. They remember stuff that he doesn't. And people are so frustrated during that level, and people are shook, and I'm like, this is what it's like to watch these guys when they don't do puzzle levels.
Well, anything, it's like infuriating to watch someone do something that you could do, right?
Or at least you think you probably could.
It's just part of the human temperament, I think.
I mean, yeah, but like that, to be fair, like somewhat part of our childhood. Like, God damn it, give me the fucking controller. Like, I will do it. Like,
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, go on.
So I did want to ask you, what did you have any specific games that were, because you have, I forget how many it is, 5?
I think it's 5 levels.
Different types of, 5 different levels that you show, maybe 6 or something.
There's 9.
9? Wow.
I'm trying to think.
I must have.
Of course, I believe you.
I guess there's a couple that are like shorter, right? But Damn, 9.
There's one that definitely reminded me.
I should have taken better notes.
I just thought of that. Yeah, go on though.
But did you have specific reference points for each of those in other games, or I don't know? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. All 9 levels had some sort of inspiration, except for maybe the last one, which was kind of just a
kind of its own thing.
Ending of most video games. Although I told my husband, who did the music for the film, because that's like kind of a boss fight, I was like, I want you to make the music like the end of Metal Gear Solid. Yeah. So I guess like Metal Gear Solid in a weird way inspired that level. So the other 8, I mean, we've got Five Nights at Freddy's, PT.
I was gonna say, that's the one I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah, and everybody, it's funny, like I get a lot of reaction from the beginning of that Slender level. I didn't realize how recognizable that game was for people until I started going to screenings. And I mean, you just hear gasps throughout the audience whenever that level comes up, and it's like, wow, this one's really going to get to people. The opening is a lot like Vanish, but it's also basically any Unreal developer's first game is, we're in a dungeon with a monster. Right. That's kind of like, there's a million of those. And I mean, so many that the names don't even stick with me. I guess, Time War is one that's kind of famous that's in that realm. We got Alien Isolation, which that level, has some inspiration from like Dead Space and Prey too.
Good ones. There's a JRPG one, actually. That's one I asked you about. So like, that's the one we forgot about.
That one, Misao, Blue Oni, Mad Father, just everything like that kind of came out in like 2014-ish. There haven't been a whole lot of them lately, but I remember there was definitely a streak of them for about a year there, because I watched Mark play a lot of them. And those were surprisingly satisfying. I didn't think I was going to like them at first. But the more I watched them, the more I found myself really getting invested in the stories of them. And not really scared by them, but they're more story driven. And then we have the level that's kind of inspired by a combination of Amnesia and Resident Evil.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is there's sort of the puzzle element of those. And then we have sort of a PUBG level where we toy with some multiplayer elements. So yeah, there's everything. I struggle to say that any of these games only had one influence. I think PT probably, like that level was just PT. Although you could maybe argue that Layers of Fear.
That's one I was going to suggest to you. So you have played, or at least you know about Layers of Fear, because I really liked that one when it came out. I enjoyed it a lot. It was one of my favorite like walking sims games, or even like I gave it honorable mention or something. But I really really liked that game, and those are the kinds of things that get me. So when I saw some of your sort of, I guess I'll call them like anagrams of levels that you made of like things that recognize me, like that it looks like X or Y, or like it's similar to X or Y other game that I played. So I thought it was really cool that like it's cool that it seems like your audiences, you're saying when you're showing it, that they can connect, or like it's recognizable, they're familiar with what you're trying to go for and the levels that you put in. So that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. With Layers of Fear, I remember that game specifically because that game has one of the best jump scares I've ever seen in a game. That bookshelf. Yeah. And there were a couple scares in Livescream that I tried to evoke that moment in Layers of Fear, like when he turns around.
That was a great moment, and I saluted for sure. That was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I don't know. I guess I'm gonna get to this question that we spoke about a little bit beforehand via email. Now, I asked it a little bit jokingly, but I wanted to know if you had any plans to like release a game or anything based on the movie that you were making, and you told me some interesting things that you were going to do. So, would you mind telling our audience about that, because I think it's a great idea.
Possible tie-ins, if you will.
Yeah, so I got a lot of tie-ins planned, which is tough because since Livescream doesn't have distribution and it's not out in the public, it's hard to build media tie-ins for something that people can't buy. So a lot of these are probably going to be late next year before you start seeing them, with the exception of one group of things, which is going to be like April to July. But yeah, the whole thing with the Octopunk is that the reason for the octopus is that it's got many legs, because I've never wanted to be tied down to just one medium for telling stories. So Livescream, instead of just being a film, I have plans to expand it into an interactive experience, possibly by VR.
That's cool.
But this is mostly going to be for exhibiting. So I want to try exhibiting next year at like maybe Scares the Care, Day of the Dead, like go to some of these places and have a booth. And at the booth, you can try on a VR set and be in some of the levels of Livescream.
That's sweet.
The levels aren't currently playable, the ones that I made for the film, but they're close. I mean, the environments are there. So there are maybe 4 or 5 levels that I think I could adapt pretty easily into a playable experience for people and put in extra Easter eggs and that sort of thing that, you can find as like a meta game on top of the game. And being able to share that with people as a VR experience would be really cool too. So we'll see if that gets off the ground. I do have a series of novellas planned, which are like prequel novellas. Each of them span a different decade. So we've got like 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s.
That's cool.
All 4 of them involve some sort of spooky gaming horror experience that happened to somebody in that time period. But they all emphasize something that, like how people used to watch people play games. So like in the 80s, it takes place in an arcade.
Nice. Yeah.
So, it's kind of showing that, we've always kind of done this. We've just done this in different ways before we had YouTube.
Yeah.
And then the one that I told you about, this was Lucas Hassel's idea, and it was literally last weekend, so I don't know where it's going to go. But Lucas Hassel was like, this would make a really good stage play. And I had never really considered that before. I would love to get into live events. I would love to get into some kind of live performance or theater or something like that. But I never really had a good idea for it. And it's so funny that like it just took another set of eyes to just be like, you could just make the movie
and make your audience
do something so simple. And we kind of had this idea of like the chat part of it actually being interactive, so like audience members could type in or like send in chat messages for the chat, like, and actually have it be interactive. So I don't know. It's really just an idea right now, and it would be a while before we get that off the ground if we did. But I'm open to the idea, and certainly if he wants to go do it, I'll give him permission. Then I don't have to do the work.
Certainly seems like it'd be a really cool experience for sure.
Yeah,
you said like you don't really think about it, but you're like, you know what? That'd be a sweet idea if you can make it happen, or you do it and let me know how it goes, but run with it. But that's really awesome.
And it does sound like a really fun experience. So let me know. I'll definitely go check it out if you end up doing that. But I wanted to actually go back to what you were talking about, the development of the levels, and ask you kind of what the development process was for those levels. How involved were you in the development? Like, did you do all the programming, or did you have somebody else do the programming in those, or how'd that work?
I had to do everything myself.
So to be clear, she pretty sure she just said she did all the levels, right?
I wasn't sure if it was like you and the team or.
Okay, sorry. Go on, Michelle.
Yeah. So, I will clarify. The textures and the models and the enemies, it can be purchased on the Unreal Engine
they're assets
store.
that you have, right? That's kind of what I thought too.
Yeah. Yeah, the assets were purchased because, I mean, there's no way I would have been able, I don't know 3D Max, I don't know animation on any of that. But what I did do is I built the levels, which I guess you could say are like sets in this
for sure.
context. And then painted them with textures and dressed them with various props and, furniture or whatever, depending upon the level. And then the enemies I would plop in and I would program them to behave the way that I wanted them to behave. Sometimes that meant programming them to, have sort of like a fixed animation that I would just sort of interact with and make it look like it was coming at me. Other times I would basically just set it to attack on sight. That was most common. But I would say the top one was when we had to start involving weapons. Because when you actually have combat engaged, that's like a whole other like ball game in Unreal, and that took me probably the longest to try to figure out how do I shoot him enough times to where he dies? How do I detach his body from mine so I don't drag his corpse around the map? I mean, there's just like a lot of stuff like that went into the programming process and stuff. And I guess also I did all the lighting.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So that's not something I've really talked about yet. So you guys did it
Nice.
first, but Unreal, I mean, you have to build all of the lighting from scratch. You have
That's
to
intense.
be able to put all of the lights. So I had to figure all that out, and I'm definitely not the best at lighting in Unreal, but there were a couple levels that I think came out pretty well from a lighting standpoint. So I had to I was actually looking up techniques in Unreal, and some people said that, you know, basically you actually kind of light it like you would light a normal set in some ways. There was like all these hacks to where you could actually use like bounce boards and stuff in Unreal the way you would in real life, where you have like a plane fight in a plane, you put a light up against it and then bounce the light off, and that creates like this really nice glowing effect and stuff. I don't remember if I actually got to use that on any levels. But yeah, I learned a lot about that too, because that's really what makes or breaks the aesthetic, I think, in Unreal, is that, you know, you can have games like, I think maybe BioShock was made in Unreal, and it's gorgeous. And then you have like some of my games in the film, which are less than gorgeous. And you wonder, like, how is this the same engine? Well, like, it comes down to the lighting, really. And then people knowing how to manipulate the processors of Unreal to be able to be like, all right, we're going to, you know, disable God rays or whatever, to give them the look that they want.
Yeah, it's interesting because like it's something like maybe not people don't think of it, but like lighting it, like when done well, I would say you don't notice it because it feels natural, like has the effect that you want it to. When it's done poorly or just not, like it's going to be very obvious. So I thought that was interesting. And also what you said, it's like you're programming the monster. It's almost like instead of having like actors or even like animatronics, you're digitally like directing your creatures, or like your actors in a sense that aren't the human actors. So I thought that was kind of neat that you just mentioned. I was like, that's true. You have to basically code your own, the rest of it.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting look into an aspect of games that people probably don't think about very often.
Yeah, exactly.
But, you know, I like getting that little like view into those things every once in a while. When, especially like even I wasn't really expecting to talk about lighting on this right now, but the fact that you can talk about that and like give everybody, including us, some insight into like how that works is really cool.
For sure.
So thank you. Another thing that I wanted to mention about this movie before I forget is there was this feeling of that a lot of it was improv. How much of it was script and how much of it was like kind of off the cuff monologue, I guess?
I'd say it was my entire script plus 20% or so improv. Is kind of what I've been telling people. I wrote a 75-page script and Gunnar recited every line in it. There was really no way to make this movie from an improv sense, because there's a lot of like foreshadowing and stuff in the actual script. Like he talks in the first level about like how he's not good at puzzle levels and stuff. So there's too much that comes back, and particularly because he has to interact with the chat, he really needs to have his side of the conversation be right. But Gunnar is very clever and very funny, and funnier than me, I think. So we ended up. I just told him to always keep talking. just keep talking, because that's what those guys do on these streams and stuff. That's what you have to do to keep things interesting. You can't let there be dead silence. And because the way I wrote the script was like, all right, you know, Gunnar says this, and then, you know, he takes 5 steps forward in the level, and then 5 lines of chat happen, and it's like, well, okay, all that can happen in the script and it's a minute, but he hasn't spoken in 20 seconds because all that's happening simultaneously on screen. But, you know, in a script, it's all, you know, separated. So, you know, he might have a whole page where he doesn't have a line of dialogue in the script. So I was like, just keep talking until you get to that next line, you know, observe the environment, respond to the chat, you know, whatever it takes. He was really good at doing that while also still remembering all of his cues and all of his lines in the script too. Extremely talented Gunnar Willis, and made it look absolutely effortless. And actually during it, I was kind of like, maybe I'm not asking him that much. But then I was like, yeah, I am. Like, most actors are like, this is insane. Like, this is impossible what you asked this poor guy to do. But no, he would just sit down and he'd just do it. And it was It was really, really easy
I will
working
say
with them.
That's really cool.
It came together really well because it felt very natural. It felt like watching a real stream because you're right. That's what we do. Like, they're making comments and looking back and then blah, blah, blah. Like, so like, that's what I think Steve, I wanted to know, like, how much of it did you sort of plan out? As you said, sure, on paper, like he says this line, whatever, and then the chat scroll goes through, but it just felt like a very naturally, like a stream that you could, if you didn't know it was a movie, you almost could believe that it's just some random stream, some real stream that is out there. So
right, it sounded kind of, or it sounds kind of like it was like, well, hit your marks, but also react to everything else that's going on at the same time when you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of that's just Gunnar. He's just really, really good at sounding natural. And that's what really won him over for me in the audition process, was just he could just recite things naturally. And I could, even when I knew he was reading, off the script,
came off
made
of
it sound like it was just coming straight from
the brain.
Awesome. That's great. So you've been kind of taking this out to festivals at this point. I kind of wanted to ask you how that's been, how the experience has been, A, and B, if you have any good stories from any of those festivals, because those are always, fest stories are always fun.
I would say Genre Blast has probably given me my best stories so far, and that was last week, so it's still kind of fresh. I had a really good time at Crimson. That's where we had our world premiere, and it's here in my backyard. So being able to share it for the first time with basically my own community was really rewarding. And then we won the jury award, which was crazy because I was like, that doesn't go to features normally, and it really, I don't know. I was never expecting that. And especially because like we had won Best Actor for Gunnar, and then we ended up winning first place or first runner-up or Audience Choice, even though we didn't campaign for it, because Mike Lombardo and his White Doomsday crew, like all 10 of them, like voted for Livescream because they liked it, and I was like,
those guys are cool guys.
It was so mind blowing. Yeah, they're really awesome. I really enjoyed catching up with them this past weekend. Yeah, like the festival circuit's been extremely rewarding. And being able to meet a bunch of people and getting this sort of just consistent feedback about the film. It's just like the most gratifying thing when the thing that you wrote resonates with people. And when the thing that you made, like, people will come up to me afterwards and be like, oh my God, like you homage like PT and Misao and like those, Unity games that everybody makes and puts up on Game Jam and stuff. And I was like, those are some deep cuts, yo. Like I expect people to recognize like Five Nights at Freddy's. I don't expect people to recognize like Misao. You really have to have been following indie horror games for a really long time to
but sure,
pull
cool.
that one out.
But if you get the reference and if they get it, then like it's even even better.
Yeah, no, and that's awesome. Everybody always laughs. When, and I will say this was improv because he was never supposed to say this name out loud but Naughty Dog is referenced in the chat. And he said, thanks Naughty Dog at one point. I'm like, I kind of wish you hadn't said it aloud because it was supposed to be like a verb of a visual pun. And I always get laughs in the audience.
I still think it worked. I noticed that too. I remember that. I was like, remember Steve? I was like, nice.
Yeah. Naughty Dog?
So like that's always fun, and getting like laughs. There's a couple of moments in the film where I wasn't sure. Well, like the JRPG level is my favorite level in the whole film, and I think it's absolutely nuts and hysterical to me. Like just because he's just descended into madness at this point, and it's such an opposite tone of like the rest of the games. And I didn't know if people were going to think that it was funny, because for me, maybe I had descended into madness at this point because I was like 7 weeks straight deep into Livescream and couldn't see out the tunnel anymore. But people really respond well to that level too. And so yeah, just being able to see that it hits its marks on all the marks that I want it to hit has been really, really satisfying. As far as fest stories go, one of my favorite sort of overarching things about Livescream is that constantly I get these 45 to 50-year-old dads coming up to me saying stuff like, my 14-year-old watches this crap on YouTube and I've never understood why he does, but now I do. I've had that range to be jokey, and then I've had that range to be really sentimental for some people. Mike Keller was one in particular at Crimson. He was like, I connected to my 8-year-old because of this movie, and I'm like, That's not something I ever expected. I made this movie for people my age. I didn't make it for 8-year-olds.
Sure, but hey, bonus, you know? again, like we have no idea.
But yeah, bonus, absolutely, yeah. And my other like specific festival story is I don't know if you guys know the filmmaker Saba, but I met Saba at Genre Blast this past weekend, and we ended up traveling together from the airport to the venue, and then we ended up sitting next to each other in the theater, and we had the best time just like hanging out. Like we were so on the same page with the things that we like. And he's very particular, and he's just like, I have notes about every film that I watch or whatever, so, don't feel bad, but I'm going to have notes about your film. And at the end of Livescream, he was like, I still have notes, but who cares? And I was just like, yay.
That's badass.
And at the end of the day, he's just like, this guy I've known for 3 days was just like, I'm very proud of you. And I was like, thanks, French Dad. So yeah, just being able to meet people like that on the circuit and be able to like use the movie as an excuse to have those people come into my life is the best story, I think.
Yeah, very cool. I feel like that's always, anytime I go to a con or like a conference or a fest, I feel like you meet a lot of really cool people, and that's, I try to connect to a lot of people there at things like that, because that's where you're going to find people that are really interested in the things that you're interested in, and
at least have more of a chance of it, for sure.
Exactly. And like, I don't know, that's always great. We went to NJ HorrorCon last year here in New Jersey, and it was just a blast. They're actually doing one, I think, right now, maybe
next week or something like that.
Very soon or right now, but which we're not going to, but I think we're going to try and go again next spring or fall, one of those.
Yeah, they do that every 6 months.
Yeah, the last one's back in March, so yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it was such a blast last year, and met a lot of really cool people.
Yeah, it was a whole lot of fun, and also we could like promote our podcast too, because like you said, there's some crossover. Like, say, hey, you like horror movies? Also check out our stuff, maybe.
Yeah,
but
that's where we met Mike too. Mike Lombardo.
That's true. So that's why we got into an interview with him and talked to him about White Doomsday and everything.
Yeah, which was
and he put us in contact with you.
Yeah. So there you go. It's a full circle.
It all worked out. What else you got?
But yeah, so I mean, I guess unless there's anything else you want any more you want to say about the movie, I don't want, like I said, we don't want to give spoilers or anything here. So maybe we can move into other stuff. Unless you have anything else any other stories you want to tell about that.
I think we're good. I always hesitate to know whether I should spoil like the homages and stuff, or should people go in blind. But I don't mind spoiling that too much. As long as the plot spoilers are kind of under wraps, we're all good.
And this last thing is just remind us, when is it slated to be released? Do you have a date yet?
No, I don't have distribution. I would say mid to late next year if I had to guess. But you can catch it at the Sick Chick Flicks Film Festival in Cary, North Carolina in a couple weeks. You can catch it at the Wreak Havoc Film Festival in Greensboro in a couple weeks. And you can catch it at SuperCon in Sioux Falls, South Dakota in a few weeks too. So all that's on the Facebook page for Livescream and the Facebook page for Octopunk Media.
We'll put it all up as well. But
we'll put links.
I just wasn't sure if you had a date or not, so just wanted to check on that. Cool.
We'll put those up as well. So I guess other things, right? What else are you working on now? You mentioned earlier that you you've been writing stuff and things like that. So let us know what else you're working on.
So the most immediate thing is I have a book coming out in December through Falstaff Books. John Hartness, who's a best-selling author, his books have been pimped out by Whoopi Goldberg on The View. He owns a publishing company. He's based out of Charlotte. And he takes a lot of what he calls misfit toys, these books that are a little quirky and odd and maybe don't fit in traditional publishing, particularly because he likes a lot of urban fantasy and stuff. And a lot of traditional publishers, as I know from kind of having tried that route, urban fantasy is like a dirty word. They think it's played out, it's oversaturated, nobody wants vampires and all that sort of stuff. I don't write vampire books, but I do write books about, Navy SEALs and gods. So it sort of falls into the urban fantasy category. and also like having an LGBT slant in my film as well, having a gay main character and a gay love interest kind of pushes it out of traditional publishing as well, unfortunately. So he saw the book and he loves diverse characters. He loves, mythology and that sort of stuff. So he ended up optioning the book last year for
Awesome.
a trilogy.
Congrats.
And the first book hopefully comes out in December, but we need the edits done by October 15th. And I decided to rewrite 30,000 words of the book. So, I'm going to have a busy September is what it comes down to.
But but that's,
and then,
I mean, if anything's worth it, right? You gotta sacrifice for your art.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's like, I've been working on this book for 5 years and, I'm kind of just ready for it to be done. But at the same time, I mean, it is my debut and I don't want it to be something
Sure, of course.
that I'm proud of. So that's the
double-edged sword there, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned also that you are working on a campaign to get another movie funded, right?
Yeah, so Killer Assistant, this is something I'm just collaborating with my friend Michael Whaley. He's a filmmaker here in Charleston. He does kind of like, I don't want to say he's only a horror comedy guy because he has a lot of range. He does dramas, he does straight comedies and rom-coms and that sort of thing too. But I think he definitely has a good sense for horror comedy, and that has become kind of his niche. And our upcoming horror comedy is a mockumentary called Killer Assistant, which basically asks the question, what if movie killers were so efficient because they all have
nice.
personal assistants?
I like that premise already.
And so it's kind of office for these killer assistants where, it's a mockumentary we're following around the assistants to 3 famous movie killers who they are basically Mr. J, I don't remember what we're calling them. We can't call them by their real names, but they're
like XPs of the big ones, yeah.
Yeah, their names are going to get bleeped and their face is going to be blurred and stuff. One of them is very famously sort of on the poster in outline only. And yeah, it's just a short film, and we're currently trying to raise $5,000. Last I checked, we had $850 after a week of campaigning. So things are chugging along, and there's some cool perks. Like you can get posters, and you can get a social media yell out for $15, where one of the cast members, most likely Jason Buterin, will yell at you personally in a video. So if you've ever been wanted to be insulted by Hot Pink Jesus, you can donate $15 to Killer Assistant.
Check that. Anybody
Sounds
listening,
awesome.
go do that right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Check it out. Go get yelled at. All right, and tell us a little bit about Octopunk Live, because I've heard good
your
things.
Plans for that.
So after watching E3 this year and feeling really jealous that I wasn't Todd Howard, I was like, what if I did a press conference for my work every month? How self-indulgent would that be? So I did. And actually it's turned into something that's really fun. It's a way to kind of keep everybody updated on what's going on. It's a way for me to give away cool prizes. Like I give away Steam keys for video games every month, pretty much every month, or merch, or both. I've been giving away my sweet Iggy the Octopunk pins this month. So I think I give away posters and shirts and other stuff like that. And that's kind of just to get people interested. But every month it's basically like what's going on with Killer Assistant, what's going on with Livescream, if we get any more Livescream tie-ins, what's that's going to look like.
Nice.
Any merch updates, that sort of thing. And also in the future, with future projects, I'll be able to expand even more and be like, all right, this is where that game that I said that I was working on is currently at, and that's where this Fallout 4 Machinima that I've been working on for 3 years is currently at, and it might actually come out now. So I have a lot of projects kind of down the road, which unfortunately I kind of can't talk about most of them because I'm like Bethesda. I kind of only like talking about things once they're almost done and I know that they're going to happen. I don't want to be the type of person who's like, here's 5 things that I'm working on, and then they never come out, and then it kind of reflects badly. But I can say that there is one short film it's kind of in limbo right now because we have to figure out the funding. But I'm working on a short called Fame Fatale with Michael James Daly. I'm directing it, that he wrote it and is going to star in it. And it's about a 40-year-old gay actor who snaps at a horror convention. And it's based on some personal experiences that he's had being an actor for 20 years, but also being a horror fan.
Sure.
And being very heavily involved like in the indie horror scene. So that one we're really excited about, but we are seeking $15,000 for it, and we're going to have to end up with like fiscal sponsorship and maybe try to raise money that way. So it's just a whole thing that we have to get off the ground and try to figure out who's going to sponsor us and all that. So it's hopefully going to film next year. It's going to depend on, like, we have some odd set pieces that we can only have access to like certain times of the year, so we might have to push it back till maybe the end of next year, but we'll see what happens with that. I think that one's definitely going to happen because Michael's super passionate. He's wanted to make this film forever, and I'm really excited about the script and just the overall premise. I think it has the potential to do really well.
Sounds great.
And where can people? So where can you find the link for Octopunk Live? Is that just on?
You can go to facebook.com/Octopunk Media, or you can go to octopunkmedia.com, which is just the general website where you can find out about Livescream, you can find out about merch, you can find out about future projects, Psychoacoustics, which is my short film that's currently running around the circuit, and that's going to actually be at Women in Horror Film Festival in a few weeks. So just everything Octopunk is on Octopunk.
Yeah, and we'll put up a link on when we discuss it as well, of course.
All right. I mean, I think we've talked about all the things that I wanted to cover. Is there anything else going on with you that you want to discuss, or anything that you want to? Are there any other
that we missed
projects that you're interested in that you want to give a shout out to, or anything like that?
I have a friend who is running a Kickstarter campaign for their first feature called Flesher. That's the Johnson brothers, and they're seeking $5,000 to help with their feature. And it's super gory and it's really grisly. And
awesome.
So if you're into like body horror and Hostel and torture porn and all that kind of stuff, that is the movie for you. And you can check that out at, I think it's facebook.com/Flesher Movie. I think Flesher Movie is their handle across Instagram and stuff. But what else could happen if you just Google Flesher and see what comes up?
Nothing
Definitely
bad there,
do that
sure.
out there. But no, again, like if you ship us a link, we'll put it up on our stuff as well. But check that out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know, Scott. You have any other questions?
No, man, you covered a lot. Like you said, like you have so many things, like sort of in the spinning plates, if you will, that you're like. Maybe when it gets closer, if this XY gets done, but other than that, man, you seem super busy, Michelle, and that's awesome. Getting out there, doing your thing, and covered it. Like I want to talk about the games and live stream, and we did.
Yeah, yeah.
But definitely keep us updated and keep all your Octopunk will keep all your anyone who's keeping up with you. It's sort of like I was gonna say, kind of like a dev diary, like in a sense, like hey, here's what I'm working on, and keep us updated on the live version of Livescream, if you will, like the stage play version, because that'd be great. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely let me know about that. But anyway, Michelle, thank you so much for coming on.
Indeed.
We've been the Lost Signals, and like I said, we'll put up all the links and stuff on our site, and we'll let you know when we're going live. So, to everybody out there, Lost Signals fans, you've already got everything now that you're listening to this. So we've been the Lost Signals. Thanks for joining us, Michelle, Scott. Thanks for co-hosting.
I
with
remain
me, buddy.
Scott Thurlow as always, and thank you so much for being on. And hopefully we'll keep up with you and talk to you again maybe, and see how your circuit's going later on in the year.
Absolutely. So, have a good night, everybody.
See you next time.
Hello, Scott. Welcome to Livescream. You have 5 lives. Play carefully. This game is not scary yet. That's okay.
Clyde the Clown is hungry, and he wants fresh human flesh to feed his hunger.
One good thing I'm not afraid of clowns. Wait, is this you guys for real? Yeah, it's augmented reality. It's not real. Don't worry about it. Hey, Simon said, are you okay? Abandon the game and die. You're making me decide who to doom here. No, come on. done. Editing and engineering by Christopher Morgan. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates.
Or mods?